Hi, everyone. Welcome. Our class today is going to be a bit shorter, and the reason being is we're going to focus solely on shoulders and shoulder openers. And because that's such a tough area and can be really tight, we're going to keep most of our poses into this one-sided pose in the 2 to 2.5 range that we're holding 2 to 2.5 minutes. So just kind of want to give you a heads up before you jump into this class. It will be shorter and it will solely focus on shoulders. And you may want to have, I have my meditation pillow, I have my blocks handy. You may want to also have a blanket handy. And really, we're using those as props for our head, props for our arms when they're overhead. So give yourself a few minutes to grab those. I'm going to take off my glasses here. As you're gathering what you need, for those of you who are ready to start, we're going to begin just by coming to a restful space. And this does not have to be a yoga pose. This can be any space that feels like it brings the most ease to the body. And often people will recline, but you may remain seated. Maybe you've got your calves on the couch, legs up a wall. You could be on your side, your belly, or reclining, resting on your back. No particular way to be except in stillness. So we're really looking for this space in which we can remain still here at the beginning of class. So as you're coming into that space, it might be helpful to do a few of those deeper inhales. You can think about inhaling as deeply as you can. And as you exhale, you might imagine that exhale is settling into the weight of the body where you are connected to the floor. You can do as many of those breaths as you would like, as feel useful to you to help release maybe some tension and even some of that breath space. Will expand the rib cage, release the rib cage, and give us maybe a little bit more expansion in that area. And once those breaths feel complete, we're just inviting the body to breathe itself. And there's no effort to breath. We're going to use the breath today, or the noticing of breath, as our way to arrive in class, to get grounded, to get centered. So, with this nice, easy breath, normal breath, we're going to begin by noticing the space that we fill up when we inhale. So, where are we breathing into? As you exhale, where do you feel that breath released from? So this idea of just noticing the path of the breath. Where do you feel your inhale? Where do you experience your exhale? Draw our attention to the temperature, or really the temperature change of the breath. So as we inhale that nice cool air, as we exhale, we experience the warm air leaving the body. And just noticing here for the next few breaths, your inhale and exhale in terms of temperature. And we may notice there's sound to the breath. And sometimes it's only the sound that we can hear inside our head. If you're feeling stuffy like me today, you might hear your breath as it's experienced in the room that you're resting in. But drawing your witness or your noticing to the sound of your breath for the next few inhales and exhales. And we're just going to count the number of beats it takes us to breathe in, the number of beats it takes us to breathe out. We're not changing the breath, we're just noticing. And the beats are individual to you. So it doesn't matter the rhythm, noticing the number of beats it takes you to breathe in, the number of beats it takes you to breathe out. And throughout our practice today, you might want to extend the exhale. Extending the exhale often helps us release tension. And because we're working with the shoulders, I don't know about you, but that's where I hold the bulk of my tension. And some of these poses might feel somewhat uncomfortable. And so, what might be helpful is to think about extending your breath by just one or two beats. So, for instance, over an average of 4 or 5 breaths, if it takes me 5 beats to breathe in, I'm going to try to exhale for 6 beats or seven, no longer than that. We don't want to go too far in the exhale that we feel out of breath. That sparks a whole different response in the body. And we're looking for ease here, a release of tension. And you may be here to fully not have to pay attention or focus on anything. I want to invite that too. What is it that you need today that would nourish you most? So, when we're talking shoulders, we're going to start with melting heart. Melting heart has a lot of different versions here. For some of us, melting heart just is not our jam. So you might go onto your back with your arms overhead and your legs comfortable. That could be bent knees or straight legs, just a little stretch there, especially if being on your knees or your low back is a little bit tricky here. Melting heart, the full expression of melting heart, is where we've got our knees right above or below, I should say, our hips. Our arms are reaching towards the mat. Our belly is dropping towards the floor. So we have a nice little arch to our back. Now that can feel a little bit tricky. So you might sneak your weight a little closer so it's hovering above your calves. And you can always use a pillow, cross your forearms, or a blanket in order to access this with a little less intensity in the shoulder joints. This is quite a compressed space to be, but we're really releasing this front space of the chest, of the belly, and of course the underarm area. All of which is going to have an effect on your posture, helps your head come back into alignment if that is possible. Helps release the top ridge of your shoulder, tension that's happening there. And often that tension we experience between the shoulder blades. Melting heart for 3 minutes here. And this may be where we use our breath to tell our brain we mean to be here. There's no emergency situation. No need to hold on to tension. That's that slightly longer exhale. And remember, just by one beat or two, that we're extending the exhale. If you're new here or it's been a while, just a reminder in our yin, we often are in silence. There's a space for you to notice your experience, to be with the pose, to make any adjustments you might need to make by listening to that body. And tuning in to maybe one of those qualities of breath, tuning into the sensation of the pose. Throughout any of our practice today, if anything is becoming painful, not just uncomfortable or experiencing discomfort, but painful, we want to come out of the pose. Nothing in our practice should be painful. To counter this pose, we're going to shift back into a child's pose. So hips now come back to heels. You might play around with arms. You may want arms reaching towards the top of the mat. You may want to slide hands down by your side. You can always, and I'm going to use one today just because I keep smashing my nose in when I'm teaching, and I'm going to use a pillow to rest my head on. We do want to try to get the head to rest in order to release some of these neck and shoulder muscles. So just 2-minute counter stretch here in child's pose. If you are resting on your back, you're going to just draw your knees now into your chest, using those arms to hold on behind thighs or the fronts of shins in order to get a little counter stretch, that counterbalance of a back bend with a rounding or neutral spine. Just a few breaths here. You're ready. We're going to slowly come out of the pose after these longer holds. Sometimes we need a little bit of wiggling, a little bit of stretching. So I want to invite you to wiggle around. If you have a block or a low pillow handy, you may want to grab it. I'm going to be resting my head on it. We're going to go into a really not typical yin pose as history shows, but a really effective pose to hold a little bit longer to open this whole front area of the chest. I'm going to actually switch around here because I'm going to do my right hand. So we are going to be on our bellies. And once again, if this does not suit you, what I'm going to invite you to do is to rest as if you're curled up on your right side. Sorry, let me take that back. Rest as if you're curled up on your left side, and then just open up that arm, that right arm. So you would be in a twist or resting on your left side with your right arm open. If you're doing this one on your belly, I'm turning around here so you can see my arm. I'm going to extend my right arm somewhere between my hip and shoulder. It is less intense if you begin down by the hip. It gets more intense when you get closer to the shoulder. I'm going to roll up onto my right hip, and this is where my block is coming in handy for me. I'm going to take my top leg and make some decisions. Either I rest it in front of me, bent knee, or I can intensify by placing the left sole of the foot on the floor behind my bottom right leg. So the idea here, and we're only going to hold it for 2 minutes, I promise, is that we are opening the chest muscle. I'm going to start my timer here. And once again, I'm going to repeat because I said it pretty quickly. For those of you who are reclining, you're resting on your left side as if you're curled up in bed in a fetal position, and you're opening your right arm up to the other side. You'll get a similar stretch with maybe less back twistiness or less back issues, maybe less intensity in the front of that shoulder. It's once again, maybe a place where you're using a slightly longer exhale. If we're finding it uncomfortable, and of course, if we're finding it painful, we come out of the pose. see. Those of us here in this arm extension are going to roll to our bellies, resting in center here for a few moments. If you're resting on your back, you're coming either back through center or you could roll to your right side. Before we switch sides, we do want to spend some time here, just a moment or two, in center, getting an opportunity for everything to be going in the same direction. Okay, we're going to switch sides. You're reclining, you're now rolling over to your right side to open that left shoulder. For those of us who are on our bellies, we are going to be extending our left arm somewhere between the space of our hip and shoulder height. We roll up onto that left side. I put my hair up today. And we decide, do we want that leg to rest in front of us? Or would we like it to be in back of us? 2 minutes here, opening that left shoulder, that left front of the chest. Doing some of these for a shorter period of time. And because I'm sequencing one shoulder move after the other, you could do any of these for 5 minutes at a time. A little longer hold, going to release connective tissue, especially if you find one that feels like, ooh, that really worked. You might solely focus on that one. You don't have to sequence these one after the other. That really felt good, or you felt some release. You might work up to that 5 minute hold. Once again, we'll release to center no matter where you're at. If you're resting on your belly, if you're resting on your side, take a moment, any space in center where arms and legs are doing the same thing. We are getting ready for all of us to meet reclining, resting on our back. You may want to have a prop overhead. We're going into our banana asana. So, banana asana, we're going to be resting on our back with our legs long, arms overhead as long as shoulders agree to that. Now, if they don't, arms can go out into a T. We're going to walk our heels and our hands, the backs of our hands, off to the right side. Here's the banana part. We look like a banana. Not my naming. We'll leave that to Bernie Clark, who named this banana asana. What we might do with props is to either place a block, a blanket, or a pillow underneath the forearm or the elbow of that left arm, the one that has to reach the furthest. This helps with the compression in the top of the shoulder, especially since we did melting heart. You can also play with the cross of the ankles one way or another. Sometimes that helps intensify what we're feeling in this pose. So much of our shoulder release, especially in yoga, is arms overhead, as if we were hanging from monkey bars. It's really opening up a space, I would say, from the elbow down here to our hip bone, maybe even beyond. But it's not just this underarm, shoulder blade, top ridge of the shoulder area that creates some of this tightness or tension we experience in shoulders. It is a tight front of the chest, a tight rib cage area, the side rib cage, and maybe even tight abdominals. I always feel my abdominals here, especially between the bottom rib cage and the top of the hip. Also, a chance to expand our breath. Rib cage has connective tissue as well. And of course, with the rib cage is protecting lungs and heart, connective tissue surrounding and within those. We're going to come back through center, and I recommend at least bringing your hands down by your side. You might also maybe draw knees into chest, whatever you might need here to feel like you can release the head structure, the low back. And while we're pausing in center, an opportunity just to notice how this left side feels compared to the right side, those similarities and differences. I always feel longer on that left side, like I've grown a couple of inches after banana asana. All right, we're going to be moving now to the left. So heels walk off to the left. Arms, if you choose, go back overhead and they walk off to the left. So the backs of those hands. And again, maybe supporting the arm that has to reach the furthest, which is the right arm this time, under the elbow, under the forearm, playing with the cross of the ankles, if that makes sense. If you're a visual learner, I'm changing up my pose just a little bit for a bit of a pinch I have going on here in my shoulder blade area. A chronic good friend that shows up often. But just making an adjustment. Sometimes when you're a visual learner, you look at the camera and you think, oh no, what have I missed? You've missed nothing. We're in our Badana Asana, doing what works for you. Slowly start to come back through center, walking heels through center, bringing hands down by your side. Anything that feels good here, I'm actually going to draw my knees into chest. You might keep your legs long. Might feel like you need a little bit of movement. I'm going to take a moment here, about 3 minutes, not just a moment, in constructive rest pose. So it's hard to see on camera, but in constructive rest pose, my feet have walked fairly wide. My knees have dropped towards each other. If it doesn't restrict your breath, we're going to wrap our hands around our heart, like we're giving ourselves a hug. And there's going to be one way that we do this that feels like, oh, that feels really natural, and another way that feels weird. You get to pick which one. I like the natural one for me because I tend to always put that right elbow on top. If this feels very restrictive for breath, just feel free to rest your palms on your rib cage with your arms resting on the floor. And taking an opportunity here to open up that space between the shoulder blades. And the position of our legs is helping our low back specifically be very neutral, neither arching nor rounding. And if we were to be here, I'm going to guess around 7 to 10 minutes, we would feel that whole low back. If you have an arch in your back, that's pretty significant. Mine is. I eventually feel that back, that low back start to touch the mat. Begin to release. Take your moments to wiggle. We're going to be moving into our block rest. Now, if you don't have these props available, totally fine. You can remain in constructive rest pose, or you could go into Shavasana where you're reclining with your legs straight and hands down by your side. If you are going into block rest, we're going to take this flat block, it goes behind your shoulder blades. And the temptation is often to get that block closer to the higher block. In fact, almost always we're drawing it a little bit further away. We want it to feel like we're really opening that chest area. We've got our other block on its skinny side, so our chin is just slightly higher than our heart. And we're going to lay back and feel free to sort of move around how you need to. Everybody's different based on their torso length, tightness of their shoulders. Now, this one, we're going to be here for 4 minutes. And one of the things I typically do, I slide my hands underneath my buns, more like a supported fish pose for me. That does not have to be the space that you take it. You could also have your knees bent. You could have them back in that constructive rest pose position as well, or legs straight. Different than our young class, we're not worried about bringing big toes together or flexing feet here. We're letting our legs relax. We're back to opening this chest area, this front space of the heart, perhaps maybe even the front space of the shoulders. And with our head just slightly higher than our heart, an actual neck release, those neck muscles and their connected tissue, the tendons and then ligaments that are holding bones together, have an opportunity to experience more ease, more pliability. For most of us, this tends to be a fairly relaxing pose, but if it's not, because you're feeling tight or in experiencing pain, you don't have to hold it the full 4 minutes. You can go as long as it makes sense and then take the props away and just rest on, well, actually just rest in a way that feels restful to you. Doesn't necessarily have to be on your back. Come off of our blocks by just rolling over to one side rather than sitting up tall. Creates a little less stress on the spine, and then using our hands to press in to remove those blocks. We're going to be coming into Shavasana. I'm hoping I kept this in that 35-minute range. We are going to be coming into a restful space. And I do recommend for this particular one coming to rest on your back, maybe with a slight lift behind your head, but you don't have to. If resting on your back is not restful, please do feel free to come to rest on your side or your belly. And I'm going to rest with my knees bent. My hands are going to be a little bit further away from my sides, palms facing up. If you're in full Shavasana, your legs are extended, they're lengthened and resting on the mat, fairly wide on the mat. Now, as you're getting settled and reminding yourself as I transition to seated here to finish class, that you can extend any of these holds. You could sequence it just as we did, or pick one or two that feel like they provided some relief for you and begin extending those holds just a bit longer, maybe extending each time you practice by just 30 seconds. So if we held it for 2 minutes, you're holding it for 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and then moving up in 30-second increments. And sort of the plan here for the end of class is for me to quietly log off after I've gotten you settled in. But the invitation is to stay a bit longer if you can. There's a lot we did in a short period of time for this neck, shoulder, chest, mid back region. And not just physically, energetically. And so the longer you can stay, up to 15 minutes in Shavasana, would be ideal. As you've settled in, as you've chosen what space you would like to be in, we let the noticing of breath go, especially if you've been extending the exhale. We invite the body just to breathe itself. There's no effort to breath. We invite longer pauses between thoughts, and that can lead to a quieting of the chatter of the mind. We let go of all of the doing of our hour's practice, of our day. We invite ourselves to just simply be, to be resting here in a sense of ease, maybe even a sense of well being, resting in ease and well being for as long as you choose today.